Hey, how's it going guys? It's Nate here, and welcome to Dawnstar, a shivering gem of a port on Skyrim's northernmost shores. This settlement is home to some of Tamriel's proudest Nords, and serves as the capital of the Pale. The community here bears some of the harshest of the known world's winters, but thanks to bustling sea trade and a rich mining industry, it nonetheless prospers. One of the oldest of Skyrim settlements, it's no surprise that the Jarl has recently enthusiastically declared for Ulfric Stormcloak, and is now fighting to break away from the Empire. Today, the people of this frostbitten city often debate whether leaving such a historic kingdom to bring back an old one was the right thing to do. Divided, cold, and historic, Dawnstar's a place everyone who's ever played Skyrim knows. But there's far more to this location than the average person will ever discover. So today we'll be taking a look at 5 things you probably didn't know about Dawnstar in The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Starting off, well, today the people of Dawnstar are some of Talos, Tiber Septim's proudest and most open worshippers, literally fighting for their right to continue praying to him. It wasn't always that way. And if one account is to be believed, it would seem their ancestors were some of Tiber Septim's greatest enemies. Okay, so you know how some details we cover on this channel require a bit of context? This is definitely one of them. You see, long ago, in the late Second Era, before becoming a god, Tiber Septim was a living, breathing human person. A general, then king, then emperor, who conquered the entirety of the known world. Literally, all of Tamriel was under his control. He founded the Septim Empire, which, quite ironically, is the very same empire the people of Skyrim are trying to get away from now. But I digress. Tiber Septim, of course, didn't take over the world peacefully. No, it was through a series of brilliant military campaigns and conquests. Well, most of this period is incredibly well documented. We have names and locations of individual battles, specific generals in Tiber's army that he really liked. We know everything. But how he ended up taking over Skyrim is left really ambiguous in the game's lore. We know there was some military action in the region, but we're not really sure who he was fighting. Was Skyrim united at this time under a single High King who opposed Tiber Septim? Was it divided into individual city-states, some of whom opposed and some of whom supported him? We're unsure. But there is a single book, which first popped up in the Elder Scrolls III Morrowind, though can still be read in Skyrim, which documents this time period. And it indicates that the city of Dawnstar fiercely opposed Tiber Septim, to the point where, if they had their way, they might have been able to stop his whole conquest in its tracks. The novel Ice and Chitin, by Imperial historian Pletius Spatek, takes place during one of Tiber Septim's campaigns, somewhere in northern Skyrim. During this time period, he's at war with the war chiefs ruling a city called Dawnstar, or perhaps Dawnstar. The book doesn't do a whole lot to clarify on this distinction, but seeing as there's no cities in Skyrim called Dawnstar, we can safely assume that that was the ancient name used for Dawnstar. Anyway, the text itself isn't really an overview of Tiber Septim's campaign with a lot of historical details. Instead, it's more of a story that centers around the struggles of one of his generals, a woman named Betea. Evidently, while Betea was leading an army through enemy lines, on her way back from a meeting she just had with Tiber Septim, her forces were ambushed by those war chiefs of Dawnstar. Lucky for her, she and her small personal bodyguard of around 5 troops were able to make it out of the chaos, though it's implied her entire army was decimated. From here, the book goes on to document Betea and her men's desperate attempt to get back to safety, as they're being pursued by these war chiefs. They hide in abandoned forts, try to only move at nightfall, make desperate rushes to evade the eyes of these war chiefs. All throughout this adventure, Betea engages in dialogue with her fellow survivors, where she makes it clear that the war chiefs of Dawnstar are some real competent fellows. She commends their strategic ability for being able to defeat one of her entire armies, catching her off guard. She mentions an ultra-powerful cavalry that's apparently the Empire's equal, and we're overall given this impression that these enemies, these Dawnstarrians or whatever you want to call them, are giving the Empire one heck of a fight. Ultimately, Batey and her small gang are able to escape, running over a frozen lake that our enemies can't chase her onto, evidently due to them having way too heavy armor. At this point, the book comes to an end, and not much more is said. Nowhere else in the entire Elder Scrolls universe is this specific conflict even mentioned. Though if what that text says is accurate, and the naming continuity sticks, it looks like Dawnstar was once one of Tiber Septim's greatest foes. I do wonder what Dawnstar's war chiefs would think if they knew that a few hundred years later, their descendants would be openly worshipping the guy they fought. Oh well, it's all history now. Next on our list, fast forwarding to modern-day Skyrim in the 4th era, Dawnstar's economy is dominated by two mines, Quicksilver Mine and Ironbreaker Mine. And it's the hilarious, though tragically imbalanced relationship between these two mines' owners that I want to explore right now. Because they're both owned by a pair of ex-spouses. Yeah, the people who own these mines used to be married to each other. A lovely Nord woman named Beytild runs Ironbreaker, while her ex-husband Legelf runs Quicksilver. Not a lot of context on what went wrong in this marriage is offered, however, it's very clear that their splitting up was a nasty one. Both characters hate each other's guts, and neither can go for more than a few minutes talking without trying to dunk on their former spouse.
I own Ironbreaker Mine. We make twice as much coin as those horkers over in Quicksilver Mine. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Ironbreaker Mine is 3 times the worth of that Quicksilver Mine, and its fathead owner.
If you don't mind me saying, Legev, you're working too hard. Go home.
Never. Not until we turn this mine around, drive Beytild out of business, and force her to apologize to me for everything she's done.
It's quite funny, but all it really is a harmless rivalry, right? Alas, players who go through the Dark Brotherhood questline will eventually receive a contract to kill Beytild. Now, all Dark Brotherhood contracts are anonymous, so we can't be sure who's paying the Brotherhood to do this, but let's be honest, it's obvious that Legelf, her ex-husband, is the one responsible. And after you've committed the murder, if you go and speak with Legelf, he'll be ecstatic, enthusiastically happy that his ex is finally gone. So, it's clear who did it.
My wife Beytild is dead. Can't say I miss that old saber cat.
Here's where things start to get really, really tragic though. If you decide to kill Legelf, the husband, before you've killed Beytild, and then go ahead and speak with the woman, she won't be happy her ex is dead. Instead, she'll be depressed, claiming that while she thought she hated the man's guts, now she just misses him in a way she never imagined.
My husband Legelf is dead. I never thought I would miss that oaf so much.
And thus, while Legelf genuinely hates Beytild, to the point where he likely hired someone to kill her, or at the very least celebrates at news of her death, she, all things considered, didn't really hate her husband. At least, not in the same way he hated her. In fact, she must have even liked having him around. It's a really, really unfortunate dynamic. Coming in at number 3, let's talk about something less miserable. Silas Vesuvius is one of Dawnstar's most prominent residents. He's defined primarily by his enthusiasm for an organization called the Mythic Dawn. Long ago, the Mythic Dawn were a group of Daedra worshippers who supported Mehrunes Dagon, god of destruction. They were, in fact, some of the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion's primary antagonists. However, since that game, they've long been destroyed, and likely won't be coming back. Well, Silas, whose ancestors evidently served with them, is unwilling to let the Mythic Dawn's memory die, and he's converted his home into a museum, where he allows visitors to see various artifacts and learn about their history. But it's not Silas's museum that earned him a spot in today's video. Instead, it's the man's nose. Yes, his nose, the one on his face. Bear with me now. It's not necessarily noticeable, especially by Skyrim standards, and it's certainly not unique. However, it is one of the smallest, if not the smallest presets available for a character nose in the game. This is kind of funny, because Silas, his name, when translated from Latin, literally means snub nose, or tiny nose. The more you know. For fourth spot, the settlement of Dawnstar, in fact, got its own entire Elder Scrolls game, technically speaking, and the marketing behind it is hilariously misleading, which is ironic given how little people know about this game anyway. Way back in 2004, 2 years after the successful release of The Elder Scrolls III Morrowind, Bethesda Game Studios decided to produce a couple of mobile games set in the Elder Scrolls universe. And one of those was The Elder Scrolls Travels Dawnstar. Longtime fans of the channel are likely already pretty familiar with this game, as I've talked about it before in previous videos. It's got some interesting lore. Set at an unknown time period, of course, in Dawnstar, the game revolved around a mysterious, blue-skinned humanoid people known only as the Ice Tribes, who are trying to besiege and capture the city. It would be up to the player to defeat this enemy by clearing a variety of odd, cube-shaped dungeons and save the town. Do bear in mind, this was a 2004 mobile game, so it was made for things like old Nokias and Blackberries and stuff. Not exactly the most technically impressive feat. What I want to focus in on, though, that I find really hilarious, is that the only real place you could find information on this title was its store page. As Bethesda and their parent companies never really did a whole lot of external promotion, they don't seem to have ever bought any advertisements or commercials, so the store page was the only real source for official information on the title. And it was hilariously deceitful. You're seeing a glimpse on it now from Web Archive. Not only did it kind of stretch truths, no, it told straight up lies. One of its biggest promises is guaranteeing that you can play your character the way you want, for good or evil. This is a total lie. There is a single campaign one can go through, and in it you're very much a good guy. There are no bad guy objectives or missions, nothing like that, and there's certainly no room for player choice. You don't get to make decisions in this game. There's also the guarantee that as your character grew to be tougher, so would your opponents, poking at some sort of leveling mechanic where your foes would level with you. That just doesn't exist. Your enemies are always the exact same strength. I could go through the list. There's a bunch of these claims. And even some of the ones that are true are only, like, kind of true and highly exaggerated. Let's just say that the game this store page is telling you about, and the one it's asking you to buy, are two very different things. But despite this relatively harsh indictment I'm giving Bethesda right now, I'm willing to bet the misleading marketing probably wasn't on purpose. It's possible the person who wrote this development page never got a chance to play it or just wasn't even on the team. Back in this time period, editing standards were a little bit lower. It's also quite possible that, despite their name being on the box, Bethesda Game Studios didn't have a lot to do with developing it. At this period in time, many developers and publishers were outsourcing to small third-party studios and paying for them to make mobile games with their names on them. That could be what's happened here. And whoever made the store page was just not even employed at Bethesda or was working at Bethesda but didn't really know what was going on in the development. There's a whole litany of possibilities. Whatever the reasoning for all this is, just know that before the Fallout 76 controversy, before Skyrim's paid mods and Oblivion's horse armor, there were lies about Dawnstar. And finally, last on our list, Saren, a Redguard woman, is quite a unique sight in the Nord-filled city of Dawnstar, this far north in Skyrim. A long ways from home, she was originally born in the hot, desert province of Hammerfell. She grew up in Hammerfell, and always thought it was where she would die. However, one day, her father, a blacksmith, took on an apprentice from Skyrim, a Nord named Rustleaf. The two quickly fell into mad love. One thing led to another, they got married, and once Rustleaf felt good enough at his craft, he moved her back to his hometown of Dawnstar, where the two now own and operate a blacksmithing business. This is an interesting and well fleshed out backstory. even by the high standards set by Skyrim. Though something else that makes Saren a very, very special character, and something you wouldn't notice unless you got pretty lucky with some dialogue, is that she's one of only 2 people in all of Skyrim that's pregnant. The couple doesn't bother to make a really big deal about this fact, but if you speak to Saren, one of her possible greeting dialogue lines is this.
We discovered recently that I am with child. I'll need to stop working next season.
Furthermore, the following radiant conversation can be heard between the two, if you get lucky enough when they're in proximity to each other, where they discuss raising a child in this cold, dangerous place.
Rustleaf, I've been wondering. Maybe after the baby is born, we should move to Hammerfell.
Hammerfell? I'm not against the idea, but why?
I'm just worried about raising a child in the middle of this war of yours.
War of mine? It's not my war, Saren.
Your people's war, I mean. The Nords. What kind of life would we be giving our little one if we stayed here?
Well, let me think about it.
Alas, the next time you're on a rampage in Dawnstar and murdering all of the citizens to death, just know that if you strike Saren, you're hurting more than just her. And with that, we are going to wrap up. 5 things you probably never knew about the chilly city of Dawnstar in the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Thanks so much for stopping by, everybody. Which of these fun facts or tiny details did you find to be the most fascinating? And what Skyrim or Fallout or any other game Easter eggs do you know of that we've yet to tackle? Leave a comment down below. As always, like ratings are very much appreciated. Again, thanks for watching, and I hope to catch you all in my next video. Peace out, everyone.